The world is heating up, not in theory, but in real, measurable, deadly ways. What was once described as extreme is fast becoming the norm. And in some parts of the world, the heat is no longer just uncomfortable, it's lethal. But when does it cross the line from dangerous to completely unlivable? When do our bodies, our cities, and our systems simply stop functioning? And this isn't a future problem. Scientists now believe the limits of human survivability are already being tested in several continents around the world. Understanding the human limit, or what is known as the wet bulb temperatures. To understand when heat becomes unlivable, we need to go beyond the basic weather report. Traditional temperature doesn't tell the full story. The real killer is something called the wet bulb temperature, a measurement that factors in both heat and humidity. A wet bulb temperature of 95 degrees Fahrenheit is considered the upper physiological limit for human survival. At that point, the body can't cool itself by sweating because the surrounding air is too saturated with moisture. Even in the shade, even without moving, even with unlimited water, you can still die within hours. Here's the shocking part, that threshold isn't a distant scenario, it's already been recorded in places like Pakistan and parts of the Persian Gulf. Scientists have documented brief but real wet bulb spikes of 95 degrees Fahrenheit. We are witnessing the start of a global climate boundary being crossed in real time. Where it's happening first, regional hot zones. Let's take a look at the global heat map. Countries along the equator where the sun's energy hits most directly are already suffering, especially in regions like South Asia, the Middle East, West Africa, and parts of Central America. In India and Pakistan, millions face daily temperatures of 113 degrees Fahrenheit or more during peak summer. That is like extremely hot. You really can't go outside to do anything. And what makes it worse is the humidity from something called monsoonal moisture, which sends the wet bulb temperature dangerously close to or over the survivability line. And these aren't isolated incidents. The frequency of extreme heat events in South Asia has doubled in just the past 40 years. The Middle East is already becoming a furnace. In 2016, Western Asia recorded an air temperature of 129 degrees Fahrenheit, one of the highest ever documented. And in countries like Qatar, United Emirates, and Bahrain already rely almost entirely on indoor cooling to function. Outdoor labor in midday sun is restricted or banned altogether, but many workers are still forced to risk their lives for income. In the United States, parts of Arizona, Nevada, and Texas are frequently topping 110 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit during summer, with Phoenix now experiencing weeks of 110 plus degrees for days in a row. In 2023, Phoenix saw 31 straight days over 110 degrees, breaking every previous record. And that same year, 645 people died from heat in Maricopa County alone. The biological impact of heat. Even if we stay below that deadly 95-degree wet bulb threshold, heat can still kill. The body begins to shut down when your core temperature hits 104 degrees. This can happen with much lower external temperatures if you're dehydrated, exposed for too long, or physically active in the heat. Heat stroke causes confusion, nausea, rapid heart rate, and eventually organ failure. One chilling fact, by the time someone stops sweating, a key symptom of heat stroke, the body may already be minutes from collapse. This is a silent killer, and it often hits the most vulnerable, the elderly, infants, people with chronic illnesses, and outdoor workers. But no one is immune. And heat doesn't just affect physical health. Studies have linked high temperatures to mental health crises, including spikes in aggression, violence, and suicide. The hotter it gets, the more stress our nervous systems endure. The fragile safety net. AC, energy, and infrastructure. So if heat is already this bad, why aren't more people dying from it? The answer for now is air conditioning, but that solution is far from perfect, and for many, completely out of reach, especially if you're not in the US. Globally, over 3.5 billion people live in continents that require air conditioning during some part of the year, but only about 1.6 billion people actually have access to it. That's actually horrible to think. In sub-Saharan Africa, AC access is under 10%, even in wealthier nations. Electricity costs are rising, and during heat waves, power grids fail under pressure. In 2021, the Texas energy crisis during a cold snap showed how fragile even advanced systems are. Imagine a similar blackout during a heat wave with no cooling. Even healthy people can die in a matter of hours. Hospitals can be overwhelmed, food can spoil, water infrastructure breaks down. It's not just an inconvenience, it's a cascading collapse. And worse yet, air conditioning itself contributes to the problem. Cooling accounts for nearly 10% of global electricity use, which much of it is powered by fossil fuels. So the more we cool ourselves, the more we contribute to warming the planet. Unless we rapidly switch to renewable sources, agriculture, food supply, and livelihoods at risk. The effects of unlivable heat extend beyond human bodies. It threatens the systems we rely on to live. Agriculture is especially vulnerable. Crops don't grow when it's too hot out. For staples like rice and wheat, temperatures above 95 degrees during the flowering stage can lead to massive yield reductions. In India, 2022's wheat harvest was slashed by more than 15% due to an early spring heat wave. In California, one of the US's largest food-producing states, rising temperatures and drought are reducing harvests and pushing prices up globally. Livestock are suffering too. In 2022, thousands of cattle in Kansas died due to extreme heat, which hit over 108 degrees during a multi-day spike. Chickens and pigs are also at risk. They can't regulate temperature well and die in large numbers when cooling systems fail. In places where food production fails, prices rise, malnutrition spreads, and conflict becomes more likely. Climate migration, the human floodgates. So what happens when places can no longer sustain human life for part or most of the year? According to the World Bank, over 216 million people could be displaced by climate change by 2050. We are in 2025, that's literally 25 years away, but mostly from continents made uninhabitable by heat, drought, or water scarcity. Many of these people will be forced to move within their own countries, crowding into urban areas that are already overburdened. Others will seek refuge across borders, creating complex geopolitical and humanitarian crises. In Bangladesh, rising heat and flooding are already pushing rural families into slums around Dhaka, which is amongst the fastest growing and most climate-threatened megacities on Earth. We are heading into a future where entire continents may experience seasonal evacuations, where people flee their homes not from war, but from weather. What the future looks like without intervention. What does this look like 25 years from now? By 2050, under a high-emissions scenario, much of India, Pakistan, North Africa, and the Middle East could experience 30 to 90 days per year with wet bulb temperatures above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, dangerously close to unsustainable for humans. A 2020 study in Nature Communications found that if warming continues unchecked, 1/3 of humanity could be living in continents as hot as the Sahara Desert by the year 2100. That doesn't mean they'll survive it. Many won't. Unless we act decisively, our hottest days today may soon become our coolest days of summer. Is there any hope? Yes, but the window is closing. There is still time to prevent the worst. We know what needs to be done. We need to cut global emissions by half by 2030, transition rapidly to renewables, and build climate-resilient infrastructures. That includes urban design solutions like white or reflective roofs, which lower building temperatures, green corridors to cool cities naturally, public cooling centers for vulnerable populations, heat alert systems like those in France that trigger health warnings and emergency services in advance. On the individual level, awareness matters too. Knowing the signs of heat stroke, checking on elderly neighbors, and supporting local climate action all can make a difference. So when will extreme heat become unlivable? In many places, it already has. In others, the clock is ticking. Whether we face an uninhabitable Earth or a survivable one depends on what we do in the next few years. Because the question isn't just about temperature, It's about systems, survival, and our willingness to protect each other. The heat is rising, but the world is still in our hands.